When was the last time you posted on Facebook? Not Marketplace, not your aunt's birthday, but a real post. Because here's what's wild. Facebook has over 3 billion monthly active users, record profits, and it's still growing every quarter. But it doesn't feel the same anymore. Now, what if I told you the exact same thing is happening to Google? Sure, they've just reported $175 billion in search revenue, but something's off. People are abandoning Google for Reddit. TikTok's becoming Gen Z's search engine of choice, and ChatGPT just hit traffic numbers that have Google executives breaking into a cold sweat. But just like Facebook, something's shifting beneath the surface, and the platform may be losing the impact it once had. In this video, we're pulling back the curtain on what might be the biggest shift in how we find information since, well, Google killed Yahoo. And if you think Google's too big to fail, wait until you hear what's happening behind the scenes. To understand why Google might be closer to collapse than most people think, we need to look at their rise to power and how that very success planted the seeds of their potential downfall. Google's been the undisputed king of search for 25 years now, and undisputed is a heavy term, but Google has definitely earned that label. While most tech companies face constant and healthy competition, Google's dominance was so complete that for nearly 2 decades, nobody came close to challenging them. The secret to their success? A revolutionary algorithm called PageRank that completely changed how search engines work. Instead of just matching keywords, PageRank looked at how websites link to each other, kind of like counting votes of confidence. This surprisingly simple idea was revolutionary at the time, and it let Google deliver dramatically better results than anyone else. And the numbers back that up. After launching in 1998, Google went on to control 15% of searches by the year 2000 and 23% by 2002. In 2004, they had 36%, and in 2008, it was 64%. By 2014, they owned 74% of all searches. Their dominance was so complete that in 2006, Google literally became a verb, listed in all major dictionaries. The late 2000s and early 2010s were the golden age of Google. Type in what you wanted and boom, there it was. People were genuinely amazed at how well it worked. Finding exactly what you needed on the internet seemed like magic at the time. As a result, search became the most profitable type of software ever created. Why? Because when someone tells you exactly what they want at that moment in time, showing them an ad that leads to that thing generates incredibly high conversion rates. And today, search ads make up 56.9% of Google's revenue. That's $175 billion per year. For perspective, that's about the same as the GDP of Hungary. But while Google was busy turning searches into gold, an entire industry dedicated to gaming their system popped up: search engine optimization. Think of it as the art of reverse engineering Google's algorithm to get free traffic by showing up at the top of the search results. And if you need to boost your SEO game quickly, stick around for a quick message from our sponsor, Search Intelligence. They recently ran a groundbreaking PR campaign that landed over 60 high-quality links and placements. Here's how they did it. They began by diving into SimilarWeb, discovering that OpenAI's website had skyrocketed to 44th in the global traffic rankings, thanks to ChatGPT's popularity. Using this stat, they crafted a detailed press release about their findings and sent it out to journalists. The result? Their story was featured on some of the world's most reputable websites, including Yahoo News, DR92, The Wrap, DR84, and Time Magazine, DR92. This campaign shows that PR link building doesn't always require massive data sets. Sometimes even simple statistics presented clearly to the press can result in a bounty of links. So if you're looking to enhance your link building with an innovative digital PR campaign, head over to search-intelligence.co.uk. What followed was one of the longest running cat and mouse games in tech history. SEOs would figure out how to game Google's rankings, Google would then patch those results, and SEOs would find new ones, rinse and repeat. Most regular users had no idea that this war was happening behind their search results. But every once in a while, they'd notice something was off. Like when every recipe site suddenly had 2,000-word life stories before the actual recipe, or when every review site mysteriously recommended the exact same products. Sometimes it was more noticeable, like when a search for the term idiot would return images of Donald Trump. In fact, it's a lot like the Matrix. You've got the machines, Google, running this perfect system, and humans, or SEOs, trying to exploit it from the outside. And just like in the Matrix, sometimes the machines would completely destroy everything and force a complete reboot. That's exactly what happened with Google's major algorithm updates. The Florida update in 2003 wiped out countless websites overnight. Panda in 2011 demolished content farms. Penguin in 2012 nuked anyone buying low-quality links. And most recently, the Helpful Content update in 2023 tried to tackle the problem of AI spam. But every time Google dropped one of these nukes, SEOs, they didn't give up. They adapted. They got smarter. And with each cycle, they got better at making their sometimes manipulative content look exactly like what Google wanted to see. Now many users are starting to notice though. Complaints about Google search quality are everywhere. A viral article called "Google Search is Dying" by blogger Dimitri Brereton perfectly captured this growing frustration. He pointed out how people are abandoning regular Google searches in favor of adding Reddit to find authentic discussions, how users are tired of wading through endless low-value SEO'd pages to find basic information, and how Google's need to show more ads is making the search experience worse and worse. And this article struck a nerve. It spread through the tech industry like wildfire, and suddenly everyone was sharing their own stories about Google's declining quality. It was like a spell had been broken. Finally, people admitted out loud what they'd been thinking for years. Google just isn't as good as it used to be. But Google didn't miss all the criticism. Just 6 months after Brereton's article went viral, they launched their first helpful content update. The goal was supposed to be simple: show more genuinely helpful content and less SEO optimized fluff. But while this first update was relatively mild, what happened next would shake the foundation of search to its very core. Enter ChatGPT in November 2022, probably the biggest tech breakthrough since the iPhone. While it wasn't perfect, it could do something remarkable: answer questions in natural language, without the fluff, without the ads, and without reading a novel about the history of lasagna before getting to the damn recipe. Suddenly people started asking, could this be a better search engine? Google played it cool publicly, but internally, code red. The search giant watched in horror as OpenAI challenged their supposedly untouchable core business. Google's response was a flurry of updates that came faster and harder than ever before, in an effort to keep traditional search relevant, culminating in the September 2023 helpful content update that buried countless small publishers in a wave of collateral damage. But it wasn't just AI threatening Google's dominance. Gen Z was already ditching Google for social search. Around 45% of 18 to 24-year-olds use TikTok or Instagram over Google search and are genuinely interested in more visually rich forms of discovery that they just can't find on Google. AI just opened up the branch that finally gave competitors a chance to challenge Google's monopoly as an answer engine. Microsoft Bing was the first to jump on the AI bandwagon, integrating GPT-4 into their search in March 2023. As Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella put it, they wanted to make Google dance, something they hadn't been able to do for decades.
I hope that with our innovation, they will definitely want to come out and show that they can dance, and I want people to know that we made them dance.
But the dance didn't go quite as planned. After 18 months of AI-powered search, Bing's market share crawled up from 6.61% to 7.84%. Maybe because they rushed it and the first version of Bing AI was literally gaslighting users. Meanwhile, though, Google still sits comfortably at 88.71% market share today. In their recent earnings call, Google boasted about search revenue being up 12% year on year and strong engagement with their AI features. They conveniently left out the disastrous rollout where their AI suggested people eat rocks daily and put glue in their pizza recipes. Sure, they fixed those early AI blunders, but Google is getting desperate to keep their numbers up. Just look at your search results these days. See these extra search buttons at the top, those related searches everywhere? They're not there to help you. They're there to make you search again, so Google can show you more ads, which helps them boast about increased revenue during their next quarter's earnings calls. It's making them money in the short term, but it's making search even more frustrating, which makes users look for new ways to find information. And this is accelerating the decline of traditional search. While Google's been playing these games, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman dropped a bomb on Lex Fridman's podcast in March 2024. He called creating a Google clone boring and promised to do something better. A new way to find, synthesize, and act on information. That something better turned out to be ChatGPT, launched in beta in July 2024. It offers natural language search with direct links to sources, and in many cases it feels faster and more helpful than Google. The signs of change are everywhere. ChatGPT has already overtaken Bing in traffic, and that's without offering search to most users. They also recently bought Chat.com, redesigned the homepage to look suspiciously like Google's, and plan to make the search feature free for everyone in early 2025. People's search habits are already changing. Instead of starting on Google, many are now beginning their journey on chatbots, only to use Google to find the specific products or services mentioned by the AI. Just look at social media. People are openly admitting they've completely stopped using Google for information queries. This search flow is fundamentally changing for early adopters. Let me give you a real-world example here. Let's say you're dealing with some lower back pain. A few years ago, you go to Google and wade through dozens of SEO optimized articles to try and find more information about your issues. Then go back to Google with more precise queries until you find your solution. Today, You might start by chatting with ChatGPT about your specific pain. The AI recommends a specialized lumbar support cushion or specific pain relief cream. Then, and only then, do you hop over to Google to search for those exact products and make your purchase. This pattern explains something puzzling: why Google traffic numbers have stayed strong even as chatbot usage explodes. They're still getting the valuable commercial searches, the ones that actually make them money. But here is the billion-dollar question. What happens when chatbots start competing with that final step? When instead of sending you to Google to find those products, they just give you direct links to buy them. Well, suddenly Google becomes a middleman that nobody needs anymore. And that future might be a lot closer than Google wants us to believe. There's something eerily familiar about the whole situation. If you've been around the internet long enough, you might recognize the pattern, because we've seen it before when Google dethroned Yahoo. Except this time, Google is playing Yahoo's role, an aging portal desperately clutching to its dominance while a new challenger revolutionizes how people find information. Let's look at the parallels here. Google launched in 1998, offering their search engine to everyone right away. Within just 2 years, they captured 14% of the search market. Fast forward a few years and they've completely demolished Yahoo and MSN, eventually commanding over 80% of all searches. Now jump to November 2022. ChatGPT launches to a much more crowded, competitive market than Google faced in the 90s. While its search feature isn't free and available to all yet, it's changing soon, it's already showing the same kind of explosive growth that Google did in its early days. In less than 2 years, ChatGPT has already overtaken Bing in traffic. And remember, Bing commands almost 8% of the search market, and they've been around since 2009, and they're the default search engine on Windows, the most popular desktop operating system in the world. That's the kind of growth that keeps tech executives up at night. Sure, Google still dominates search in the way Yahoo dominated the internet in 1999, but there's an important difference. Google is losing the battle for hearts and minds. People increasingly see Google as they once saw Yahoo: old, boring, and cluttered with ads, and more focused on making money than helping users. And if there's one thing the tech industry teaches us, it's that once users start seeing you as obsolete, the end might come faster than anyone expects. But before we write Google's obituary, let's talk about why they might be a lot harder to kill than Yahoo was. Google hasn't just built a search engine. They've woven themselves into the fabric of the internet in a way that makes them incredibly difficult to dislodge. Take Chrome, for instance. Google owns the world's most popular web browser. And here's the kicker. Except for Firefox and Safari, almost every major browser out there, including Microsoft Edge, runs on Google's underlying browser technology. That gives them two massive advantages. They get mountains of user data to improve their search, and more importantly, they're the default search engine everywhere. And being the default option is like starting a race 100 meters ahead of everyone else. Just ask any startup how hard it is to convince people to change their default settings. But that's just the beginning. Google also owns Android, the biggest mobile operating system in the world. Guess which search engine comes pre-installed on every Android phone? You got it, Google. And they've even cut a deal with Apple to be the default search engine in iOS, though that relationship might soon be heading for a divorce. Then there's their empire of essential services: Gmail, Google Maps, and YouTube. I could keep going, but you get the point. Each of these services feeds data back to Google, making their search engine smarter and more personalized. They're so deeply entrenched that the Department of Justice recently declared them a monopoly and is actively talking about breaking them up. And that timing could not be worse for Google, as they're about to face their biggest challenge yet from OpenAI and other AI companies. It's like they're fighting a war on two fronts, trying to fend off AI competitors while simultaneously defending themselves from antitrust regulators who want to break up their empire. But Google isn't just fighting OpenAI. A whole pack of AI-powered search engines is nipping at its heels. Take Perplexity, for instance. We use it a lot here at Authority Hacker because we actually find it more refined than ChatGPT. While they're still relatively small with 15 million monthly users and a $3 billion valuation, they're showing what's possible when you build search from the ground up for the AI era. But the player that really should keep Google and OpenAI up at night? Meta. Meta AI has 500 million monthly users, according to their latest earnings call. And rumor has it that they're building a search engine right into their chatbot. What makes this particularly dangerous is that on top of crawling the open web, they've got something nobody else has: a massive treasure trove of exclusive content from Facebook, Instagram, and Threads, which could help them create a search engine that surfaces content that feels a lot more authentic than what Google or OpenAI could ever build. Plus, they've got the distribution power of billions of daily active users across their apps. And let's not forget Apple Intelligence. In Apple's September keynote, they showed off an AI-powered camera that connects directly to ChatGPT. That's another way to bypass Google completely when looking for information. So where does all this leave us? Well, for 25 years, Google was untouchable. Their superior data, infrastructure, and proprietary technology forged what seemed like an unbreakable monopoly. While they're still holding on to their market share through their ownership of browsers, operating systems, and platforms, large language models are finally challenging this monopoly by offering something Google hasn't in years: a faster, more convenient way to access information. We're seeing early adopters and younger generations already shifting their habits, while the majority have not yet made the switch. This explains Google's only slightly declining market share. But why this pattern? It's exactly what happened when Google themselves came along with a superior product. And if there's one thing that the tech industry teaches us, it's that convenience always wins, given enough time. And time is exactly what Google has, thanks to how deeply they've anchored themselves. Being the default search engine means the transition will probably be slower than the shift from Yahoo to Google was. If they can catch up to their AI competition during this grace period, they might stop the bleeding and stay on top. But recent layoffs and the morale issues at the company are not helping. Each new product they release, from their new voice mode to the Gemini chatbot, feels like a watered-down version of what their competitors are already offering. Here's our take. Google won't die, but their influence will likely diminish considerably. The playing field has been leveled, and for the first time in decades, Google doesn't seem to have a way to create a meaningful gap between themselves and their competition. Google search might end up like Facebook. Still around, still used by your parents, but more of a utility for selling you stuff or getting product support than a central part of your digital life. So what do you think? Is Google's empire finally starting to crack? Or will they find a way to stay on top? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, you'll probably also like this video over here, so go check that one out too.